Hey there, super friends. It's Joey with Last Point Gaming. Today is Wednesday, March 13th, 2019. Alright, so there was no episode yesterday. So this one we're gonna start out with a little real talk, which, if I don't lose my train of thought, should segue nicely into our gaming related topic today. If I do lose my train of thought, honestly, that's not really going to be that big a surprise. Girly McBabyface has decided that she does not want to compete with her older sisters for my attention. And the easiest way to do that is to not be asleep at night when the older two are. I don't know if this is actually the thought process. This is what I've decided has happened. So, it's getting rough. I remember this being a lot easier when I was in my 20s. Anyway. So, I think for a while, I'm going to cut back to 3 episodes a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's going to be the goal. And that leaves me some adjustment room, like, oh, I'm taking Friday off this week. Then I can, say, record on Thursday instead. More than that, like, oddly enough, as the episodes have gotten shorter, it's like I have less to talk about. And, I mean, I understand I have less time to watch coverage and read articles and everything else because of the new baby. But the reason I've, just straight decided to cut back, I have grown weary of my position at work. It's not that I don't like my job. My job's alright, but I'm not developing. I'm a developer. I'm not growing. I'm not getting to learn new things. A lot of my job is cleaning up where other developers failed to use the correct classes or used hard tags instead of CSS, just stuff like that. I so rarely get to build anything neat and new, and I don't know, the frustration has really been growing because they've started a team in my firm of, people who do front-end stuff like me, which is awesome. But, they're not bound to a project. They're bound to this team. And they're basically kind of like floaters. They get sent out when a project's like, oh, we need to overhaul the look and feel of, this site. So we need one of your designers and we need one of your front-end devs. Which is awesome because it's like a collaborative team that you get to work with people who have different knowledge sets in the same, basic vein. And you get to collaborate and learn from other people and work on a bunch of different stuff and learn a bunch of different stuff and, do neat and exciting things. And not gonna lie, since I've been interfacing with this team, but I'm not part of this team, it has really made me weary of, my position. It's just a wanderlust thing, I guess. So, that being said, my salary requirement is a significant bump from what I'm making now because I'm comfortable where I'm at. And, anytime you go to a new place, there's risk involved. What if the other kids don't like me? What if they're mean to me? So, right now I'm kind of passively looking, and I was supposed to have an interview tomorrow, but it's been canceled. Long story. They had sent me stuff to do a test project for them, to showcase, I think, more my ability to learn than anything, because I was upfront with them that I was not familiar with the technologies. But it gave me a good starting point. So I think I've decided, Saturdays and Monday evenings, instead of, grinding on Arena and doing magic-y stuff like I usually do, I'm going to devote that time to building other skill sets to make me more marketable, even if it's just within the firm, maybe I can eventually move on to this team and move off of, perpetual maintenance duty. That's my thought. So, part of the reason I haven't been, growing in my field is I stopped doing side projects. And that's on me. Like, I stopped developing outside of work, and that was a mistake. Like, I read a lot of stuff, and I'm like, oh, that sounds neat, and I should try building something with that, and then I never do. And this is kind of where our sequitur comes in. They announced, I think it's next year, they're planning on rolling out a new Wizards Event Reporter software, which is super exciting. And from the looks of their prototype shots and things said in this article, it looks a lot like a thing that ever since I went to my first open and they had online pairings. You know what? No. I went to the first open and they had online pairings and it was awesome. And then I went to that regional from hell, with one pairings board for 200 players. Yeah, no, I'm not letting go of that. That was awful. That was stupid. Hell, even at the shop, we have a big screen TV we, project pairings onto. Like, a physical board of everybody having to get, super close to it to see the 10-point font. Oh. And at that point, I was like, man, why doesn't everybody do online pairings? I was told, not everybody has the resources to do it and everything. And I thought, but what if we did? What if when you registered for an event, they could just feed the DCI numbers in, well, they wouldn't even have to feed the DCI numbers. The big problem is I wanted a copy of the WER Software, Wizards Event Reporter, to experiment with, and it has to put out some kind of output because you can physically print pairings and match slips. So there has to be an output that the printer understands. And I wanted to find a way, if there was a way that I could intercept it and turn it into something consumable for a web service. And I was super jazzed about this. I was like, yeah, and then I can develop a companion app that sends you a push notification when your new pairing is up. Because that's one of the rough parts about going to an open as a smoker, is I go outside to smoke. And especially when you're somewhere where you have to physically walk up a flight of stairs each time. And I know how bad that makes me sound. And I don't fucking care. My joints are awful. And yeah, part of it's probably because of my weight. But it's their kind of companion symptom disease relationship there. It hurts to move, so I don't move as much. And that makes it hurt more to move. And you can see how this turns into a vicious cycle. So, as a smoker, you go outside and you take notice of the clock when you go out, but every tournament has matches that go to time or beyond time. And you're just kind of standing around milling about waiting for the next pairing to go up. So if your phone straight told you hey, round timer went off. Okay, cool. All right, new pairings are up. You're at this, so you don't have to search every time. I had big plans for this, and I just never fucking did anything. I didn't write a single line of code to do it. I did plan out database structure and that kind of thing. Basically whatever I could do with pen and paper rather than having to get near my ancient laptop. Yeah, husband wanted to replace Liaria at Christmas. And I've formed an unnatural attachment to that machine. And so I was like, no, she's fine. She's fine. She's just a little long in the tooth. It's okay. It's alright. She's fine. She's fine. Well, I think we've decided this year for my birthday, we're going to replace her. Leah deserves her long rest. She has served me faithfully for about 8 years. She was like top of the line when I got her, but now it takes like 10 minutes to respond to any single command, especially running Arena on something like that, which has a memory leak problem. Like, we're all aware of it. Fix it. So, yeah, I just never got around to doing it. So, I was reading the article. Okay, I'll be a little more honest there. I was skimming the article. And it looks like they're trying to incorporate everything into the WER software that I was going to try to build something standalone to do. So that's super exciting. You know, props to the person who had more motivation than me and, I don't know, access to the back end. That definitely helps a lot. But mostly the motivation thing. And, I mean, for reals, the WER software is pretty awful. Like, well, that's mean. It's not awful, really. It's just very archaic. Like, I don't think archaic was the right word there. Not sure. It's very antiquated. I know that one's right, so we'll just go with that. Like, when dialog boxes pop up, apparently they're not submit buttons, so you can't just hit enter to accept. You have to actually click it. Your keyboard does nothing, which is pretty awful. Seriously, submit buttons are great. And it definitely looks and feels like something that was built in the mid to late 90s. It hasn't seen much upgrade. So it looks like what they want to do with it, which, again, I'm super jazzed about, is looks like they may so they want all players basically to download this app. Now, I don't know how this is going to work at competitive. Like, that was one of my first thoughts, because you're not supposed to have your phone out during the match, but I guess technically this is post-match, so it should be fine. But, like, they want to give the players the ability to mark their results in the app. And theoretically, if both players mark results, as long as the results match, you're good. If they don't, alright, then you have to have some kind of other system. Either summon the players to the main judge booth or ask them to verify, and then if they're incorrect again, summon again, or, then summon. I personally like that, especially if they have the fucking drop box, because all the time people will drop from F&M and not tell me. And I will admit, some of them even mark it on the slip, and I've gotten much better about, like, when I enter results, I'm like, Sarkin 1, 2-0, no drops. Because the amount of times somebody has actually marked drop on the slip and I failed to drop them. And so it's not so bad when they mark it on the slip. What I just really hate is people just fucking walking off and not even saying anything. So if you put this in the app where they have to verify their result, or, it's considered good manners to, and they can just hit drop in the app, oh, that would be so great. Plus, being able to have the online pairings, being able to, just send a notification, hey, next round's up. So I'm very excited and optimistic about this if it's implemented well. And I urge the community, if they do end up rolling this out in the relatively near future, be patient. As a developer, there are things that, like, you don't notice in your local testing environment until you're in production. Now, it's rare that stuff makes it all the way through there, but my system also isn't going to be looking at hundreds of, or like 1,000 players accessing the system with about the same time. I mean, there's a point where you're like, no, you just did this poorly, but if there's a small amount of latency in the local environment, your developer may not notice it because the latency is so small that their consciousness doesn't pick up on it. Again, until you stress test it, and hopefully they do effective stress testing by, like, you know, hey, everybody in the Wizards offices or Wizards IT area, we're holding a fake tournament. We need you to, like, do shit with the app and see if we can, you know, crash it. So, you know, hopefully they go for a wide testing sample. But I am very excited about it. One of the things Boss and I were talking about when discussing this is, will players be able to enroll in the event directly through the app? Which would be kind of cool, except then you need some kind of check that they've paid. So, you know, it could be, you know, something as simple as, like, each event gets a verification code, and when players pay, they're given the code to enter it in and say, yep, verified that I paid. Or is it going to still be like manual entry? Which is fine. You already have to do that, so that's not getting any worse. So I'm actually kind of okay with that. Or if players can enroll in the event through their phone, and then you just verify them. Like, yep, this person is here and paid. Yep, this... So, like a sign-in sheet that you only sign in when you paid, which will still be obnoxious because you will still have players that it looks like somebody shocked them with a cattle prod in the middle of them writing their name. Seriously, y'all, work on your fucking penmanship, alright? Just work on it. Because that shit is really annoying. When you gotta track down, well, especially when you don't even know who you're trying to track down, because you're like looking at this and you're like, garble blot? Do we have a garble blot? What's really irritating is when people get offended by it. It's like, yeah, that's my name. And I'm like, okay, but I don't understand how you see Doug there, because I don't. Oh, and especially people with, like, common abbreviations. Like, Duck Hunt, his name has a very common abbreviation. So, he's in the system as Duck Hunt, but he writes down Duck on the sheet. And sometimes, like, it's one thing if you're looking at, like, Mike, Michael, John, Jonathan, trying to think of other ones where the shortened form of the name is basically, you know, the first three letters are the same or so. It's another thing when you're talking about things like Robert and Bob that they don't even start the same, so it confuses the WER software. So yeah, I'm really excited about this. I hope they don't bork it, because I want this as a player and as somebody who sometimes functions as a TO. Because, it would just make life so much simpler for everybody. Especially if they can implement round timer. That, you know, like, bing, timer's done, you should probably start making your way back to the event area. Bing, your pairing is up, you're playing against... Oh, I was trying to remember the guy from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Zug Zug Wiedelbrock, something like that, at, table 37. And even if, like, your local players, like your F&M players and everything, everybody decides this is too much hassle for, a 20-player event or whatever, even if they just improve the interface on the existing WER for, manual entry and manual match slip printing and all that, still super exciting. I think you're still going to run into issues of people who aren't willing to use the app or aren't able to, for whatever reason, whether, they have a really tight data plan. And I mean, really, anytime you send or receive through an app, you're using data. Depending on how it's coded, you're, using more or less. Or they don't have a smartphone. I'm not even sure you can get non-smartphones anymore, but maybe you can. If there's some reasons, I also hope they don't do something stupid like, oh, we're only going to release this on iOS, or even only release it on Android. Of course, if they're on Android, I can use it. We're only going to release it on one of the 2 major platforms. That would be annoying. So I don't know. I'm really excited to see what comes of this. Kind of wish I had taken the time to build it and sold it to WotC, but c'est la vie. So yeah, as always, if you made it this far with me, thank you very much for listening, and hopefully I'll talk to y'all on Friday.